Hello, everyone. Welcome to my first author interview. We are starting this new series to kind of build the book community, get more readers and writers into book talk, booktube. Today, I'm so happy to bring Chance Dillon onto the author interview, the first one, debut. Chance just came out with this book right here, Mercy, Tears of the Fallen. Epic fantasy novel, very similar to Malazan. And I'm going to let him dive into it and share it all with you guys. But just so happy to have him on here. And I'm really looking forward to this. Just going to be, shooting the shit, talking about books and getting into it. So welcome, Chance.
Thank you for having me. I'm super grateful. If I'm getting into Mercy real quick, there's a big prompt questions that I asked myself when I set out writing were, what if Aragorn lost everything at the end of the War for the One Ring? And what if Sam had to kill Frodo in order to save Middle-earth? Those are the big questions I asked. I went right into writing an epic because I know you have an epic, yeah? On top of the book you just came out with. You came out with the horror Western, the Demon Gunner, right? Like
exactly.
I love.
Yeah, mine's more in line of superheroes rather than probably, straight epic fantasy, but I would say, yours is definitely more in the epic fantasy category than mine, but it definitely spans a pretty big time period for sure.
Yeah, I feel like superheroes can get pretty epic with that stuff, no?
Totally.
As far as scale,
that's like Invincible, that's my main inspiration. That book gets like so epic and it starts just so small, but yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, nice. I dig it. I actually haven't read Invincible or watched the show. I'm still behind on that, by the way. Yeah, so I know I'm just diverting from talking about Mercy for a second there. Elden Ring was a giant inspiration for me as well, just like stepping into a world that's vast and there's so many questions that are sparked by just seeing it and reading the names that are confusing and this, that, the other. Like, I love that method of storytelling. I love going into an epic story, knowing that there's something deeper to the world, and sort of just getting punched in the face with it. That's like my favorite kind of story. So I decided to tell one just like that. And they're definitely there's feedback for sure. People getting into it and being lost, and then at a certain point, it picks up differently. I think at certain points for everybody. Some people pick it up right away. Usually anywhere between like 30 and 60% is where people sort of get their feet on the ground. It's been a different experience for a lot of readers, which I'm also noticing as recognizing as a first-time author just debuting a book, that everybody has different tastes and comes to stories with different experiences, and those experiences are all valid, and how they experience the world I created is sort of out of my hands, and it's sort of freeing a lot. It's freeing, and it's sort of sad because I have to move on, and I'm writing the next, I have the next book coming out in March, which is now with my editor. It's been a very interesting process as well, because you're also self-published, yes?
Yes.
So as your experience so far in self-publishing, how is it, how have you found it just generally, and all the hats that you have to wear, and socializing and everything like that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously you'll probably be able to relate to a lot of this stuff. I actually find the writing of the book probably the easiest part in the self-publishing process. It's like just the most fun. You're in your room, you're in a library, you're at a coffee shop, you're just typing away, having a good time. And then it's like the second it's done, that's like when actually it gets serious. And it's like, oh, wait, I'm not just like really having fun anymore. It's like, now I have to market this thing. Now I have to get it to like an editor. Now I have to find a publisher. If you're going like hybrid, which is kind of what I do, you have to get the cover art. So it really becomes more of like a business than like a creative kind of like passion project. I feel like the creativity really comes out obviously when you're writing the book. And then there are a few places like, doing a video like this where it still feels creative and whatnot. But it definitely becomes more of like I'm in an industry. This is like a business. And I thought I was going to be more of an artist. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of just like, I would say to people who are trying to get into the self-publishing world, picture like busy work in school, like a lot of that, where it's meticulous, it's slow. You're going to read your book 12 times over. You're going to, I mean, we'll use your book as an example. You're going to be tweaking little things that no one else would see until you finally get like a beautiful cover like this. And I mean, I work like for mine too, like, you know, the spine. You wouldn't believe how much goes into the spine design. And then when it comes out, it's like, oh, that's so sick, which this cover obviously is. But like the time that goes into that process, I don't think a lot of people realize the behind the scenes work.
Yeah. I was fortunate to have a lot of help with just like dust jacket design, spine design, formatting with Abel Montero, who also is a self-published author who wrote The Crimson Fire. I want to make sure to mention him. He did all of the like like tedious design work. He like took head on and like destroyed it. The reason the book is so presentable, Mercy, is because of him. I had obviously art direction with the cover and art direction with all the pieces inside of the book, but which is also just another part of being creative. I think that I didn't know how much I'd appreciate having control over something like that. I think being in the self-published space is kind of like a privilege to be able to, do justice to my story. And I always feel like kind of like I just finished up art direction today from Robert Trotia, who did my Naked hardback on the hardcover. And he just did a piece for me for the second book, and just like the little things that like you're talking about, the little details that probably nobody will ever notice are things that I'm just like, okay, well, this is the scene. I know the scene. The artist doesn't necessarily know the scene unless they read the scene. And then, but in particular, like what moment in the scene, it's just like, there's all these things you kind of have to dive into as far as being, or being able to exercise a creative muscle. And I am starting to grow more appreciation for that as I dive into revisions, which is like it's creative still, right? But it's nothing is like drafting. Drafting is just like picking up. This is kind of, I'm sure musicians will be angry at me for saying this, but it's just like picking up the instrument and going, right? And you do it once and you sort of get a feel for it, and every once in a while, let's say you're playing the guitar or the piano and you're coming up with a chord progression, and you sit there and you like, okay, that sounds nice. You write it down, and then you just have like figure out, okay, well, this is the tempo, this is the X, Y, and Z. You're sort of doing that with writing, and you're figuring out what fits into a scene. Whose head do you want to be in? What perspective are we looking at? If you're not stuck, if you're writing purposefully from one person's perspective, how are we able to show? I don't know what perspectives you use in your novels, but I imagine. I imagine first person is very hard to write. I've definitely cheated with multi POV because I just kind of like, I'm like, okay, well, if I need to show them, I need to show the reader or something from this, like about this at this part in the world because it's happening right now. Whose head do I get into? And then you get into their head and you start discovering things a little bit, and it gets more and more fun. I think that way. But yeah, I just, as far as self-publishing goes and time for being creative, I'm hoping down the line that there will be more time for me to spend being creative, although like I'm making time for it now. It's just a lot. It is a lot harder once things are kind of out there in the universe to be able to take that time in the day. Like this week has been, I haven't been able to, I was like, okay, fully going into this week, like I'm going to spend my regular, at least 1 hour at the end of the day, maybe 2, just in front of the laptop and start like continue to like chipping away at book 3. But, life comes up, it's just like things in life come up, and it's like, all right, well, I got it. I'm obligated to these things that are definitely going to take time. And, I'm just not getting that work in a day, which kind of, it's so hard to be, it's so hard to not beat myself up about that. But I'm starting to give myself a little bit more grace, at least in this period, because I'm still developing the second book. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna beat myself up over like, not really necessarily a drafting phase of my third book. I'm just sort of like playing around, but I don't know. It's been a fun, challenging, and interesting process. But it is cool to meet other people in the community and like chat. Obviously you enjoy a lot of the things I enjoy. You have Abercrombie back there. You got Malazan, you got Berserk. Have you started those deluxe editions?
I have. Yeah. I think I'm up to probably 7 now, I would say.
Nice.
So I was actually going to talk to you about Berserk because I think, people definitely want to, hear our kind of thoughts about stories and books and whatnot. But, after the Golden Age arc, Berserk hasn't really like grabbed me like the Golden Age did. Obviously, I bet you're going to recommend to keep going, but do you think that like, especially around 7, am I get into like maybe more of a hook, or am I going to have to get through a little bit of get some work through?
I think there's something in I'm trying to remember when the conviction arc ends. It's not. I'm at a point right now where I think those hooks are slowly like digging back in, and I'm like midway through the 9th deluxe edition, but that's I think the end of volume 25, and I think you got to be like close to 20 or something. I think in volume 7, and it is. It's starting to get those hooks back into me just because of like we're starting to see a little bit more of the world. We're starting to see the perspective of just like more of the regular people. And I think like we see a different side of our protagonist, as especially knowing how much he's gone through. But I think there is like a little bit of a episodic lull, I'll call it, of just like, things that plug in that I imagine are going to have some sort of impact later that we just haven't quite seen yet. That's what I think we're getting now. But I also have no idea, I'm not an expert of Berserk by any means, but I am thoroughly enjoying it. Yeah.
I guess I had thought that you had finished it, but it's cool to see that you're also, still in the process of getting through it just like me. And it's fantastic. It's just one of those things where I almost felt like the Golden Age was so good. It was like kind of hard to like get away from that, and almost like that story was so like complete and perfect. And then like, not saying that where I'm at now is like subpar, but it just in my mind that's probably one of the greatest like grimdark stories ever, and so it's kind of hard to like, dang, like are we kind of taking a step down from that? Like, is that like peak Berserk is like all you get at the beginning? But I've heard just to keep sticking with it, and there's still plenty of really cool stuff. And I want to see, there's like the armor that like, has the plates on it. Is it the Berserker armor, or what's that called?
I think so.
It's like the wolf head. And
I've been told that I'm close, so I don't want to say too much.
Okay. Yeah. I'm super excited to see that.
I think there's a lot of cool coming.
Sweet.
There were things I latched onto between I think where you're at and where I'm at now. Just some side characters that I thought were like really well, like as well as it can be fleshed out with how much we see them on the page. I think I latched onto those characters a lot, and it just takes me a minute. And I think we're starting where I'm at again. We're starting to like peel back some layers of characters that I'm starting to feel that same affinity toward. I think the resonance from the Golden Age is like something, I don't know. Like there's very few things I think that in media that have made me feel like that. And I think,
agree.
I'm not spoiling anything for Game of Thrones, obviously. This is for the show, but the Red Wedding obviously is one of those things that just has like so much resonance that I like. I put down the remote for like 3 weeks after that when I was binging it back in the day. I was like, I can't. It just messes you up. You're just like, I didn't know like I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was something that happens. Like, oh, it's like really real instead of being like, or whatever. I don't know. It's I just felt real and resonant in that way.
Especially like the eclipse is so different from like that moment is so different from kind of everything that comes before it, that I was almost like, I'm waiting for like the dark stuff. Like, where is it? And the people that, recommended I should read it were just like, yeah, you should just keep reading. You're going to get there. Just be patient. And it hit. And it's like, now I understand why this is like considered one of the greatest stories of all time. And speaking of another fantastic story, I see you have Gardens of the Moon back there. So tell me, how did Malazan, I know you use that as like a comp to your book. How did that influence your writing? Did you conceptualize Mercy before reading Malazan, or was it one of those when you read it, like the ideas of your own work started to kind of fester in your mind?
Right. I should have probably said this in the beginning. No, I actually hadn't started Malazan before I started writing Mercy. I had actually started Mercy that was conceptualized through a tabletop RPG game was running with 2 tables of 8 with a code-EM. So we had 16 people, at 18 if you count us. And I actually Mightland, the universe or the world that the events of Tears of the Fallen take place. And Ills the Fate, the second book. But it was conceptualized through that game, through the characters' eyes of those playing. I had ideas generally of like the kingdoms and where everybody was coming from, and then I was like, oh, this is like really cool. Like and then I like had Alavist, one of my protagonists. I had his story written, his backstory written, which is what effectively becomes the prologue of Tears of the Fallen, actually. And so I dove back into that after just like hitting a place of like I need to write a story. My buddies were on deployment who I had all been playing D&D with, and yeah, so I just sat down and started writing. It didn't stop. But
wonderful.
Malazan came along. I want to say I was probably over halfway through the first book when I picked up Gardens of the Moon in terms of drafting. And then I think I read Dead House Gates like after I had finished the first the initial, at least 1 or 2 run-throughs of Tears of the Fallen. And just like it was crazy to see, because seeing the scope of what Steven Erikson did, and it's sort of just like it took off all the inhibition, I think, that my brain had of like, okay, there's all these rules that I'm learning as I'm learning how to write, like literally learning the craft of writing, sentence structure, like all that. Like it was just like a whole, like it was a new language learning effectively how to do that. And then, by the way, I didn't even take a leap in that at all until I got my developmental editor, and I paid him, Dave Butler, to effectively, he wrote a master's thesis about my book and becoming a better writer. And it was, I mean, worth every penny.
Sounds like it.
But leading up to that, it was all like self-taught, like my own research. But Malazan really took whatever like shackles I had on my brain off. It just unlocked so much of what was possible for me. And Elden Ring, in the back of my mind, did that too, in a lot of ways. But I think Malazan really showed me just how creative I can get. And don't be scared to jump into multiple perspectives. Like Game of Thrones has 7 perspectives. I remember Googling like how many perspectives does Game of Thrones have. It was like 7. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do so. I think I end up with like either 10 or 11 like total, with a few chip-ins for some certain characters in my story. But like primarily there's, I think, max like 5 or 6 that we see more than one perspective from, like more than one chapter or bit. I just was like, okay, well, that's the limit then. That's got to be the limit. And then I just like took it off. I was like, no, I'm not. That's not gonna be the limit. I'm gonna not hold myself back. I'm gonna take off the barriers, and I'm gonna like kind of shoot a little bit outside the box and just try and like push this goalpost a little bit and see how far I can get within reason. Of course, there were some things that were cut from the final parts of the book, or like even before it got to Dave, there were some perspectives that I cut. That I thought were going to initially add something, and then I just decided that they didn't. Malazan really, I think it sunk its teeth into me with it just the pure like no, like I don't care that you don't know where you are. I'm going to put these pieces down for you, and you're gonna either pick them up or you're not. And then whatever happened at the end of Dead House Gates, it just, I know what happened. It clicked. There was just like something that so emotionally resonant, a moment that you just like, you're seeing, and John from Talking Story recently articulated this better than I probably ever can or will. But he said there's just the world itself and everything that is going on around these characters and through their eyes and through their own perspectives is vastly changing. And that's something that we're seeing, and just through the eyes of these characters and just the hardship that they're going up against, that feeling of just now you're in this world just hit me. And so I wanted to sort of recreate that, although I think I had already drafted Tears of the Fallen. At that point, it still was like I was like, okay, let me just like slowly not line by line let's try and like intentionally go into every single line and make it X, Y, and Z. But I'm going to go into every scene, and I'm going to find these lines and find these places that I can like pull off the brakes a little bit. Like, am I explaining too much here? Let's get rid of that.
Nice.
Am I, like, where am I in this scene, and how much, like, is this word, is this taking away from the reader's experience of being able to just like essentially being thrown with your face in the dirt? Am I helping them up too soon? And it's like just going in and figuring that out as I went.
Yeah.
I'm sure, again, debut novel, I'm sure there are a lot of readers that it doesn't land for. But I'm finding more that it does. And to me, it's obviously so warming that that's what's happening is that people like are seeking the experience of not letting their hands be held. And I think, like, again, like I said earlier, like anywhere between 30 and 60%, you start to get your feet on the ground. If people are having that experience, I think I might have not gone hard enough, because just based on Malazan and my experience with Malazan, I read 1 3/4 of a book before I literally knew where I was standing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was wandering through the 7 cities, like having no idea what was going on. But yeah, it's just I love the ride.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's kind of like the way I look at writing, is like enjoying the ride, not really focusing on the destination. But do you feel like with Malazan, for instance, like how it kind of clicked by Dead House Gates, did you in your book try and kind of have like a clicking point almost, where you like you said 30%, 50%, whatever it was, did you feel like you wrote that in, or was it more of a natural point where you just felt like by that point everyone should know what's going on? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. I think my hope is that I did want people to obviously have their feet on the ground. I was like, this is my debut book. Like, people aren't going to trust me. At a certain point, I was like, I got to give them something that they can like look at and be like, okay, I trust that he's going to deliver on what he's putting out there, because the intent is to deliver on my promises. But I wanted to make sure to raise a ton of questions first, and so I did. I wanted it to be an interactive experience, and then I slowly, like, I'll raise a question early in Tears of the Fallen, and it might be a one-off. The main plot you don't really, I mean, if you reread the prologue after reading the entire book, you're going to go back and be like, oh, the main plot was given in the first 3 pages.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's great. But you really don't understand that until there's a particular scene in I split it up into 3 books, like book 1, book 2, and book 3. In the first volume, Mercy, Tears of the Fallen. By the end of book 1, you should everything that was exposed upon, or not really necessarily exposed upon in the prologue, we sort of start to see those things coming up. And that was intentional, because I wanted to obviously introduce one of the greater problems that the characters will be dealing with earlier. But yeah, I without giving away too much, I think it became more of a natural occurrence that I think people, and also because people are doing it at different points. Like, there are some people who don't have that issue at all, and so for me, it's like, obviously they picked up every. It seems like they picked up every piece that I was laying. Whereas there are some readers like, and by the way, I'm a reader like this, where I'm just kind of enjoying the ride, and then at some point I like have these things that they register, but I didn't quite pick it up. I'm like dragging it along with, like, I'm pinching it along with 2 fingers, and then eventually a line happens, and like, ooh, and I catch it. It's probably the best way I can explain it. So I think because it happens at different points for different readers, it was more natural than it was anything else.
Got it. Yeah, because I for my book, my first one, The Golden Academy, I'm in kind of a different writing style than you. I definitely personally like to read books that, especially like big epic fantasy novels, I don't usually trust the author, like you said, unless they're very well known. So I prefer maybe like a little bit of hand-holding and kind of walking me through the story, and, kind of getting my feet wet immediately and not being like scrambling around in the dark. And I guess that kind of ties into the video games I played when I was younger. I never really got into like Dark Souls, Elden Ring type stuff. Now I am getting into that, so I think I'm kind of ready for it. But in my book, there's like a midpoint where it's just, and I also come from a screenwriting background, so some of that kind of ties over. But there's a midpoint where everyone has the same exact like, aha, that's what's kind of been going on. And I definitely feel like I planted that. So it's interesting because yours more sounds like the experience I had with Dune, where I was like 100, 200 pages in and I wasn't really tracking a lot of the stuff. And then all of a sudden it was almost like a language that I couldn't hear became clear. And I was just like, wait a second, now I'm recognizing names. I'm recognizing places. I'm understanding the writing style. Like I have a clear image in my head of what's going on. So that's super cool that, a lot of people pick up on what you're doing and hoping to do at different places. And so obviously something's working.
Yeah, no, I think, also, Dune was there's generally like, that's a great point too, that I had that similar experience, which I think was a giant inspiration for Erickson with Malazan. It just really, I don't know, that I also appreciate, like, I don't mind going into a story. Like I also like the mode of storytelling where I sort of just like whatever the storyteller wants to give me, I'm on board for usually. I recently have developed that affinity for not having my handheld, I'd say within the last 5 years. I mean, really, Elden Ring was I also never really played Dark Souls growing up. I played I played Gears of War, Halo, Call of Duty, like whatever they were,
rail shooters,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my single player games too, but Elden Ring was like a whole new experience for me, and just like being defeated is a part of that storytelling experience, and picking up the puzzle pieces of that are laid throughout the world of what the history that George R.R. Martin wrote are all part. And by the way, you don't really ever get answers. It's all like speculation for the most part.
Totally.
And they never tell you what's going on. You have to piece it together. And then, I don't know, that experience and just all the lore videos that are put out there by people.
The 10-hour long one where it's the story of Elden Ring Part 1, 10 hours.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with stuff like that. I don't know. And obviously Star Wars was another big influence.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
I don't know. I love, and I think Star Wars, there are a lot of things that just are sticking, like cinema, as far as cinema goes, like Lord of the Rings, Dune, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Dune were all three big like movie franchises now, including Dune, that played such a big role in the back of my mind as I was beginning to write, because my experience reading fiction was like Terminal List, the series, and that was it. Like, other than that, it had been nonfiction. And then I picked up Tad Williams with
nice.
Memory Storm Thorn. And that one, the Dragonbone Chair was the name of the first book, and that one really just that also put its hooks in me. And it's similar in a similar vein of like not really telling you what's going on in a lot of ways. Which was, by the way, an interesting place to start. So you recently started Elden Ring, or no?
Yeah, I'm into it. I don't play nearly enough. And I prefer to like talk with someone while I'm playing it, and that kind of experience, and sometimes getting in the same games and stuff. But I think we just recently beat Godric, so I'm still at like kind of the early stages. It's just it's one of those where you want to play Elden Ring, but you don't want to play it like after a long work week, and you're just like, oh shit, I just want like my go-to comfort game is just Destiny 2. I've been a huge Destiny fan my whole life.
Destiny 2 rocks.
Yes. And so that's just to turn your brain off, have a beer, relax, but Elden Ring is like, it's exactly. It's like, it's almost another job. And so every time you want to play it, you load up, and then the world is just so big, and it's like, where do I go? What do I do? So I don't play it enough, but I really, really need to.
I Destiny 2, that game nearly caused problems in my personal life. I love that game so much.
It definitely did for mine. I logged an ungodly amount of time in that game. No regrets though. Like D1, vanilla D1, game on. Yeah.
Destiny 1, I dove into a little bit, but I never, not as much as I did Destiny 2. When I came to Destiny 2, it was like when they were offering it for free. Like as soon
Okay.
as they
Oh,
started
nice. Yeah.
offering the game for free, is when I picked it
Yep.
up, and then I just like completely dove in. And then like
Yeah.
I went on the when did raids, and I was like, oh, once you know your role, I feel like you're like good.
Yeah.
Like if you learn your role and you do your role in the raid and you got it down, it's like
Exactly.
you could shut
Yeah.
off. But and
The
which
mechanics,
I
you
don't
got
know.
it all
Yeah,
locked. Yeah.
yeah. It's just so there's so much that experience of like learning. I don't know. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you said you also have a background in screenwriting.
Yeah, so that's what I'm currently getting a master's in right now. I'm about to finish my final year in it. So, I
Nice.
like to write television, animated comedy. I write horror features. So that's kind of my main thing right now. Is
Heck
my
yeah.
senior thesis is actually my novel, but adapted into a movie.
Screen.
Um,
Wow.
but what's crazy about it is like my professor kind of told, advised me like shrink the story down as small as possible, actually kind of make it like filmable, because a gigantic like horror Western fantasy like epic with demons and flying monsters and a giant world spanning adventure is very, very expensive in the filmmaking world. So there's like a fort in this story, which is like a gunslinger fort, like in the desert. So pretty much the entirety of that film that I'm writing, it is featured in that fort. So it's like one chapter of the book pretty much becomes the whole movie. So
wow, that's kind of dope though.
Yeah, I appreciate that,
It
man.
feels like there's a lot of expansion on that. Hey, if you ever get into, if you have any say in casting, let me know, and I'm gonna I'll fly out to LA and I'll audition.
Yeah, for sure.
At the very least.
I would love to. Like that would be my ultimate dream, is getting a lot of like friends and family involved in the project, and like really passionate people that also like enjoy the exact same stuff. So if I'm ever going to direct a film, that's probably the most likely one to do it. And like I said, I'm going to really try and scale the budget down so that you could do it like relatively cheaply. Probably just like renting out or like building out the actual set, like where like the fort itself will be like the most expensive part. But then as far as like getting relatively unknown actors and making it more of a passion project, and like I said, getting like really creative, passionate filmmakers who just want to make good art, that's like my ultimate goal. And, if it doesn't make any money, it is what it is. But it's like, it's the same thing with these books, man. It's like, I need to get these stories out there, and that comes first,
And I'm sure you're meeting people that you can like sell these things to. I'm just curious. I like, as far as the process goes, like my knowledge is very limited, but from my experience, I feel like you obviously have something, and then you have the people around you that you can eventually take it to and be like, hey, look at this thing. I think it's got some juice. And then I guess see where it goes. I'm looking into some programs out here in New York for like writing programs and things like that. I also love, I'm obviously not anywhere near as close to actually putting together a screenplay or a script, but obviously being out in New York, you also get some of that as well. But that's really cool, dude. I'm being serious. Like if I can, I'll video audition and everything. You just let me know. I mean, I'll have to obviously read the actual story first to get an idea, but that's awesome. I think that's really cool. Yeah. When you set out to write that book, did you already know at the very beginning, like chapter 1, that this was going to be your thesis, that this is going to be what you end up working on?
Honestly, the way that this book came to me was a very random kind of just like a shock, like, system shock, where it's one of those, I mean, I bet you've experienced this before, when the idea just, gets in your head and you can't get it out, besides actually creating it. So I was walking around the Met Museum actually in New York City, and I was with like my buddy, and we walked up to this we were in like the armory weapons section of the museum. We walked up to like this glass case with these like gilded revolvers, and I just stared at them, and like just this idea that just came to me. And you made an interesting point earlier about like that novel or that story or the movie or comic, whatever, that or video game even, that kind of like unlocked that like just higher level of storytelling, that like it almost breaks through the walls that you had set up in your mind that didn't even really need to be there, but it expands it to show you like, oh wait, now I know what you can actually kind of do with a story. I think a lot of writers have that breakthrough moment, And I think if you haven't had that, just keep reading. It'll probably happen. But for me, mine were the Dark Tower series and then Invincible. So like Invincible is what did it for my first book. And then the Dark Tower is what did it for, this Western.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was just one of those moments, man, where like I saw kind of where you could take a story. And so when I was looking at those guns, I pictured just like the Dark Tower, like a gunslinger walking across, the desert on like some quest. But I didn't want him obviously like following anyone or anything like that. And I really wanted to lean into the fantastical elements, because the Dark Tower, it's almost like too much. Like it almost has too much in it for its own good, because it doesn't really get deep on a lot of the stuff that it explores. Like sometimes to me, reading like the wiki for the Dark Tower is like more interesting than a lot of the actual books.
Wow.
In terms of lore, at least.
Yeah, no.
And like the great old ones and stuff like that. And like this war that happened, and I don't know if they like blew themselves up or what, but it's like, there's this whole like the like midworld or whatever is where the story takes place. Like there's this deep-seated lore that is almost like never expanded upon in the actual books. So when I set out to write this, I was inspired by the guns, I was inspired by Dark Tower, and I just said, okay, imagine the gunslinger, but like let's expand on those fantasy elements. Let's talk about the history. Let's talk about how the world got to this place. Let's see it. Let's go to the demonic world. Let's see
sick.
like, let's see the monsters. Let's spend time with them. Because in the Dark Tower, there's like a monster that's similar to the It monster, Pennywise. And it's like his brother or something. And again, like barely expanded upon. And it was like one of the coolest parts of the entire series to me. I was like, show us more of that. So that's really where I went with mine, is like, how do I fit in as many monsters as I can into this thing, as much world building, lore, and really deep dive and like not get away from it,
Yeah. That's a really sick way to come to a story, I think. Like it's just to like ask yourself those questions and like literally try to like seek to discover the answers to those questions. I don't know. I think it's such I feel like it's talked about a lot when it comes to storytelling, but yeah, it's like writing that story that you want to read, that's what that sounds like a lot, which is I think awesome. That's so sick. So when it comes to putting it to film, I imagine you saw the Dark Tower adaptation.
I did not, and that's actually kind of what I want to maybe avoid. I took an adaptation class during this master's, and like one of the big things we were taught is like you can change the source material but still be faithful to it. I think what happens to a lot of like Rings of Power or like Halo series is like these writers come in with their own agenda that they just want to push and that they want to talk about, and they're not even following anything with the source material. They're just making it something entirely different. But if you're just changing like especially if you're the original writer and you're telling maybe a story in tone to the original, but you make it known that it is not the same thing, it's just like maybe inspired by that or set in the same world, I think that's the way it goes. I think where a lot of people get like sideways, like I said, with like modern film and stuff like that, it's that they use the original as like we're being faithful, like this is Tolkien would have loved it and all this stuff, and then they just butcher it because it's almost like they don't change it enough to make it its own thing, and then they don't stick to it to be faithful, so it's just this weird Frankenstein abomination in the middle. So it's like you either got to fully commit and like do something completely different. I'm trying to think of an idea off the top of my head, but I can't right now. But like you just go,
first and done.
It's inspired, but it's fully different and it's wonderful. Like Alien Earth, in my opinion, is like a really cool kind of adaptation almost of like that world where it's inspired by Alien, but it's still like it's so different. Like it feels different. It feels unique. It feels like its own thing. And it doesn't feel like it's trying to copy. Whereas then you have like Alien Romulus, which seemed very faithful to the original. And then also didn't come off as like a copy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Because it was faithful. So you have like two different things. You have one that's like in the world of Alien and it's doing its whole new thing. You have one that's trying to be faithful to the original. And then you have like weird shit like Prometheus and Alien Covenant that's like, you're just using the Alien name, but you're just like, what are you doing? Like, it's just kind of an abomination. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Or even, you know, better with like Lord of the Rings. You got the Lord of the Rings movies that are just incredible. Like, I mean, page for page adaptations besides Tom Bombadil. And then, yeah, exactly. Which is like, obviously, you know, heralded by fans, loved around the world. Everyone, you know, admires it. And then you have Rings of Power, which is, again, they're just using the ring. They're just using the Lord of the Rings moniker, and they're not Wheel of Time. Another example. It's just like, you're playing in Tolkien's world, but you're trying to tell your own story. Like it's not fair. You know,
if you're pretending that you're telling the other story, like you,
exactly.
but instead it's become your interpretation of what that story was, which that could be a really slippery slope, but it's like one thing to say, this is my interpretation of it versus this is the story. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think I'm with your book and a 2-screen adaptation. I imagine that being that, I mean, you already talked about what it's going to be between. It's a single chapter that you've turned into this. You're turning into this film. I imagine that the heart of the story, in terms of what you were intending to do from page 1 to the end, is going to fit into the screen, although it's taking place in a single setting, relatively speaking. You can speak more on that, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that because I was kind of advised to make this more of an actual like producible film, I am having to kind of get away from the original story. However, within that chapter, a very faithful, like it will be almost a 1-to-1 version of that chapter, but I'm taking it out of my fictional world of Rodon and I'm just putting it in the American West. You know, I'm taking that monster element out, the demons, all that world building, you know, the consumption, all that stuff that's in my book. But I'm keeping the cores of the characters. I'm keeping, you know, like the main antagonist of this book, or especially in that chapter, becomes like the antagonist of the entire film. You're still getting the same horror. You're still getting like the climax of that chapter, which would just be a fantastic climax for a film. You're getting that kind of stuff. But again, it's like, I would make it, it's not going to be titled the same thing. It would be titled something different. Like I would make it known that this is more of like I don't even know if a spinoff, like you can still call it an adaptation, but again, it's just adapting one chapter, you know? You get to that point. It's just like the same problem Malazan's running into. When you get so much world building and you get so many characters, you get so many locations, it almost becomes unproducible. Like it's just impossible. So unadaptable. Exactly. And you can't, and from like a producing standpoint, no one's going to jump on it because the cost that you're going to get into it is just like hundreds of millions. And we're seeing all these like Rings of Power, for instance, you know, you have a huge fan base already, pre-existing Lord of the Rings. They pump hundreds of millions into it. They butcher the story and then it gets ruined and they just kind of lose all this money. So it's like, you know, that's I think where my professors are kind of coming from, you know, and I don't know if you're a Rings of Power fan. I don't really have a huge
I'm
dog
indifferent.
in the fight. It's just,
same.
Exactly. And, you know, I've heard just kind of mixed things about Wheel of Time. And then it started to get like its feet under it and then they cancel it. So it's just kind of the way Hollywood works. But I think that what my professors kind of advise is probably the more logical way to go than trying to like, I need to tell this gigantic, you know, fantasy epic, you know, Dark Souls horror movie where it's like, how about I even just try and get one chapter right? Then we can talk about potentially, you know, doing these gigantic worlds.
prove that you have the chops to turn it into. It's exactly what it is, right? I imagine, especially to people in that industry. That's very cool though. I like that. It's funny because when you were first telling me that you were taking a single chapter and like trying to adapt it, my brain just went to, okay, like I feel like if I were in those shoes, I would also try to the demons would be more symbolic, and then I would use those themes and those tones as a person, because it just seems easier to put together. Especially, I mean, if you factor in costs and everything, I'm sure it just like completely changes when you do something like that. But yeah, that's awesome. Sure. Yeah, that's just telling me that there's more roles for me to audition for. That's all I'm hearing. But yeah, that's sick, man. I think that's awesome. So you're in your last year. You said you're out in LA.
I'm out in LA probably for the foreseeable future. If everything goes according to plan, just keep writing books, writing screenplays, trying to get the work out there. Working in the industry, hopefully writing for a show at some point. So. I would also like to teach too. I love teaching.
Oh, that's awesome. How do you like living out in LA, like as an experience of like being out there actually?
Yeah, it's good. It's really fun. I think a lot of people, especially like in America, give LA like a really bad rep, but in my opinion, it's like one of those where you have to like, it's more of a livable city than a visiting city, if that makes sense. To visit it, it can feel it's almost like New York in that sense. Like it can feel very chaotic, overwhelming, so much traffic. You're trying to get to all the touristy spots. But when you live here and you have your own space, you have a place to park, you have a place to come back to and kind of escape the noise, it feels so much better. And then like even yesterday, I just went to some like random burger joint, just passed by it, pulled over my car. I was like sitting on a bench, 75 degrees, palm trees waving, blue sky, had a beer. Like it was just nice. Like I was just like, the weather gets you out here. The weather really does. That's probably the biggest thing is like, you first might move here and you might not enjoy it, but but then it's like, wait, 75 year round. Like this is pretty awesome. At least kind of on the coast. If you're inland, like I'm more on the coast, but if you're inland, it can get pretty sweltering hot. But but I'm from Atlanta. So like hot to me is like 95 degrees, 100% humidity. That's hot. Like out here, perfect amount of humidity, 75 degrees, ocean breeze. Like, I can't complain. So it's pretty cool. And then where are you at these days?
I'm in New York City. So I talking about all the, like I talk about it all the time with people. I'm like, just like, wow, it's crazy that like we'll get bouts of weather like that. But it's like max 3 or 4 weeks. And then it's either really hot or really cold for the most part, with the exception of maybe like 2 weeks in the fall that are like nice and not super cold, or 2 weeks in the spring that are nice and not super hot. And then like, again, a few good, really nice days. But I lived in San Diego for a little bit. I love San Diego. Nice. I'd visited LA a couple times. I didn't like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was, it was a fine trip. Like we didn't really, whoever I was with at the time, there was no, I don't know. There was no intention to go to like touristy spots so much. It was just like kind of just like being in LA, I guess. Yeah, vibing out. Yeah, which was kind of nice because it kind of took that pressure off of like I have to go see this, I have to go see that. It was just like just being in LA and enjoying it. Let's like go to a nice restaurant or whatever and eat some food. Which actually we did have some pretty decent Italian food, if I think I remember correctly.
Yeah, food's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Do you like living like New York City? This is at least my experience. I like being out here for like the creativity and creative people. And it feels like a lot of people out here like speak my language. Like obviously with the film stuff, like, oh, I'm working on this feature idea. And like, they're like, oh, hell yeah. Whereas back where I grew up, like you tell someone you're screenwriting, you're a screenwriter and studying screenwriting. It's like, what the hell is that? I don't even know what that is. So do you feel like with New York, do you like being around, like, does it have an artistic, musician, creative vibe going, or?
New York definitely has, it's not like LA. I think mostly you're surrounded by, nose to the stone, walking through the streets, getting from point A to point B. Everybody's moving fast. Everybody tells you how it is, which is nice. I like that. The creative, if you are putting yourself into creative circles, you will get that itch scratched. Like you can, which is like I've done a few acting courses out here, which I really enjoy.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I've taken a little bit of a break, but like I do thoroughly enjoy going to those classes, and you make a lot of friends there, and you just hang out, and the creative stuff does come out. It just like flows.
I love
the
that,
thing is, like you have access to everything. It's a matter of like, are you going to go get it? Are you going to go put yourself around these people? It's very much just like either you go or you're not going to be surrounded by those people. You're not going to be surrounded by creative people. You're gonna be surrounded by where you work. I'm a trainer also, so obviously like I work in the fitness industry, so I work around people who love fitness, and it's like that environment here in New York City is like different than it is in a lot of other places. I'm sure it's similar out in LA. But yeah, it's a different experience. You are very much, the opportunity to surround yourself with people in creative fields is there. It's really a matter of finding them. And I'm fortunate to work with a few clients, or have worked with a few clients as well, who are in those circles, and you get to like have an hour session with somebody, and you get to shoot the shit about creative stuff, which is nice. So it definitely, New York is such a strange place like that. I feel like LA, you have a lot of creatives. You have like I think primarily creatives, right? It's like a lot of screenwriters,
like industry,
actors,
as they call it. It's huge. It's definitely kind of been broken up over the years with just a whole host of reasons, but you still have like just that like the artists vibe, and I feel like it's like there can definitely be that weird hustle culture of like everyone's trying to make it, they're trying to like, what can I gain from you? But from what I've experienced and the people I've met, it's like, again, it's like everyone just kind of speaks the same language. Like it doesn't matter if they're a screenwriter or like a painter or something, it's like, or a musician, it's still just like you can just feel like everyone wants to create and put art out into the world. So I've never felt like more at home in a place I've ever lived, but so this is definitely a spot for me, man. But I'm glad to hear that you get, an awesome experience over there too.
Yeah. I think they're building I don't know who's building it. I don't know if it's Amazon. I don't know if it's Netflix. I think New Jersey.
I
grew up in New Jersey, but I think it, but they're doing like, which would make perfect sense, but they're doing I think they're building like a pretty big lot out there in Jersey, which is not a big state, by the way. So it's I'm kind of curious as to what that's going to look like.
Yeah. From what I've heard about it, it's pretty state of the art, because it's like, it's like sound stages stacked on top of each other.
Whoa,
connected by gigantic elevators, like freight elevators that can like move. You know what I mean? Yeah. Exactly. So they're building vertically, whereas LA, when all the Warner Brothers and everyone kind of came out here in the early days, MGM, and it's like you had these gigantic lots, and Disney, and they built long ways, and now they're building.
They're like, let's just build up. I'm actually curious as to where it's going to be. I'm going to look into that more, because if it's by the shore, that's pretty cool. But if it really just depends. I mean, it's going to be cold. You know exactly where it is? Do you know the town?
I don't know the town. I just know it's on the water somewhere.
Okay.
So yeah, it's definitely like on the water. But like I said, it's a brand new thing. I don't think they've ever. It's like they had to like invent a shit ton of stuff to do it, but it'll probably revolutionize like in terms of square footage, where you don't need a gigantic plot maybe, but you can build vertically. So we'll see. It could just go up in flames, or it could like be like the future of filmmaking. But we'll see. It'll be cool. But just for, I guess, our viewers' sake, I'd love to maybe shoot the shit with some of the books out here at the end. And then I'll let you go, because, I know you're a busy man, and we can get a part 2 of this going eventually. But, so if you had like one book that you felt it maybe might be underrated, or not a lot of people are going to find it, or just maybe like a book that changed your life. I mean, I know we've talked about Malazan and Berserk and whatnot, but what do you think something that was like influential to you that people might look over, that they should definitely check out?
I use this example that whenever I'm asked this question, I think my first initial thought is Dragon Bone Chair, and it has been beaten like a dead horse to say that like doesn't get enough attention.
Yes.
but it really doesn't. Like I like Broken Binding came out with those copies, and you started seeing more people either rereading it or reading it for the first time, but you're not really seeing it talked about even now, since those beautiful. By the way, like, I have to get my hands on those editions. But Dragonbone Chair was absolutely a game changer. Yes, it was my first experience reading fantasy. I guess I listened to the first Game of Thrones before I had read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, but I saw like that, the blurb on the front, which is crazy that a blurb sold me, but it was George R. R. Martin's blurb saying like, this is the whatever influence of Game of Thrones. I was like, oh, well, I guess if it worked for him, maybe I shouldn't finish Game of Thrones and I'll just read this first. And so I was like, okay. So I read it. And I was like, oh, and I kept reading it, and I was just like hooked. That Austin art is like so alive, and so real, and the characters and the way that the perspectives work in that story were vastly influential to the way that I went about telling my story. Like, yes, Malazan played a big role in terms of like, you could just jump in ahead and get out of it and do this and do that. And I think Abercrombie does a little bit of that too in some of his books. But Tad Williams, and just also the prose, like if you want to talk about some of the best writing in the game, I've been like inundated with Steven Erikson lately, but I'm been really looking forward to eventually returning to Tad Williams's writing after having experienced all that I have in fantasy since then. But his writing, I don't know, maybe Erikson, Robin Hobb, and like Christopher Rocchio. And Tad Williams. I mean, like I can take names off of that Mount Rushmore, and Tad Williams, I think he would duke it out with the best of them, if not be the best. But yeah,
wonderful. Okay, that's exactly what I was looking for. I've heard so much about that series. I've heard so much about Tad Williams. I guess like what I think that a reason maybe why it's underrated is because I've, at least when people recommend it, they say that the beginning is quite slow and meticulous. And so obviously for someone like you who really enjoys stuff like that, I bet that just, hit different. But whereas, for a lot of people, like we were discussing with like attention spans before the recording started, it's like, it stinks that is a reason why people wouldn't pick up such a fantastic series. And, but I need to check it out. So Dragonbone Chair.
That's the name of the first book. Yeah.
Okay,
and latch onto
on
the words. Yeah. Latch onto the words on the page with just the prose and the writing, and just like, if you could do that, there's no reason to put the book down. Like, it takes 10 chapters for actually things to get going. But if you just like strap in and be like, I'm sitting out here, I'm having a burger on a park bench at 75 degrees, palm trees are waving, I'm drinking a beer. If you just do that and get into that book, you'll breeze through it.
Sweet. That's actually exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, sweet. And on that note, are you into Bacher at all, or Bacher, R. Scott Bacher?
I haven't read it yet. I'm trying to finish Erikson before I move. I had Janie Wirtz and R. Scott Baker are like the two big series that I'm sort of going to dive into after I get done with Malazan, and then obviously Realm of the Elderlings.
Okay.
I've only done Farseer,
got a lot,
but I gotta do more. Yeah, so much. I'm so behind. By the way, such like a rookie reader still, which is funny.
Same with me, man. I'm the same way. I just know, from everything you're mentioning, like the darkness that comes before, like in terms of prose, you like dark stories, you like the epic worlds, like I've just heard incredible stuff about the darkness that comes before. So definitely add that one to your list. And I heard it's like the perfect, like after Malazan, like to kind of like, I don't know if elevation is the right word, but it scratches the itch. And then also like it takes things even darker than where Erikson takes them. So that would be a good one. I guess for like my question, I would recommend a Wizard of Earthsea as my Ursula K. Le Guin as my kind of maybe overlooked. I know it's like in the booktube and fantasy, subreddit communities, like everyone knows Ursula K. Le Guin, everyone knows Wizard of Earthsea, but I feel like when you talk about like pivotal fantasy that like defined a generation and influenced countless people, especially as like I'm a big Name of the Wind fan. And when I read A Wizard of Earthsea, I was like, whoa, like this inspired Harry Potter. This inspired A Name of the Wind. Like, I was like, holy shit, like this is foundational. Like people need to read this. So just like you said, like a good book where you're just relaxing, like that was it for me. Just, you know, and it feels like a more refined version of The Name of the Wind, because The Name of the Wind can really, I don't know if you've read it yet. Have you?
I have not. No, I've stayed away. I'm not in a rush to start that one, even though I know how good it is. But I
love it. It's definitely divisive though. Like I have a lot of videos on it.
Polarizing in that way, right? But I feel like mostly positive. I feel like I'm seeing mostly what I see is it's a great book. You know, it's Patrick Rothfuss is one of the best. Yep. Period. I mean, there's a reason he's had a ton of success, right? And it has to be that. But yeah, I haven't quite gotten to it.
Yeah, the protagonist, I think his name is Koth. He's like very like jarring. Like a lot of people kind of find him annoying. So he's very self-righteous, Gary Stu type vibes. Like he's just good at everything. All the girls like him. He's like the most popular guy, like that kind of thing. So if you're not a fan of like self-insert like power fantasy kind of novels, The Name of the Wind is never going to work for you. So if you want like a refined, more like accessible, like maybe for everyone, that has just like a likable protagonist in a fantastic world and amazing writing, then A Wizard of Earthsea is like going to be the move in my opinion.
Roger that. Yeah, that one I think, because it's like first of all, I see that edition all the time. It's like all the illustrated and it's massive. And I'm like, I want to pick this tome up. But I know as soon as I do, I'm gonna like open it and I'm gonna want to continue to read it. But yeah, that one, yeah. There's so many giant series, but I feel like Wizard of Earthsea, like stuff like Gormenghast and Book of the New Sun, things that like kind of squeeze together in like smaller chunks, but like they're massive stories, but confined. If that makes sense. Like at least put into an edition where you can like just go through it as a single book. I think Long Price Quartet is similar in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
are you into
really want to get into
Book of the New Sun? Like, have you read that yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I read
that.
That's such an interesting question. It is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite books, like Shadow and Claw, the first two, and then Sword and Citadel. They are. I didn't read Book of the Long Sun yet, but they are. They are some of my favorite books that I've read. And similarly, if I don't know if you've read any Christopher Rocchio, but he's heavily inspired by Gene Wolfe. Gene Wolfe's writing is amazing.
Yeah, period. I've heard it.
He's another one of the like prose masters that like I should have mentioned before. But yeah, the voice of Severian is so like I don't know, explored and nuanced, and I don't know. It's there's just so much to love in that story. If you could just like sit down and not try to like think too much into all the stuff that's said about it, like you know, you're like in this crazy thing, and it's like just sit down, read it as what it is, and similarly to the other stories, it's like you're just like reading a fantastic story at the end of the day, which is how I found the most enjoyment from it.
Yeah. Do you feel, or I guess Rocchio, he's pretty inspired by the Book of the New Sun, right? Doesn't he say that was like his biggest thing? Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, Gene Wolfe is like the height of writing for Christopher Rocchio, and I don't think I'm misquoting that. I think that I can say that confidently.
Totally. I mean, that's what I've heard too. So you got two sources on that. That's sick though, and like that's Sun Eater, right? Is that his Rocchio's?
Yes.
Okay.
Sun Eater's incredible.
You've been reading those too?
Oh yeah. I have the newest short stories collection to get through, but that's also like that. Malazan are I think Malazan number 1, Sun Eater number 2 right now that I'm into. But yeah, I'm going to that gala in North Carolina in November. I don't know if you happen to be going, but yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to that.
Would you recommend I try and go to that?
It's tough because
it's like far for me, obviously, you know,
it's across the country. And then also it's for the last book. So I imagine that everybody's going to be, you know, like, so if you haven't read the series yet, it's like, I don't know if I will say this. I don't think this will be the last time something like this happens.
Wonderful.
Just based on his growing stardom in in sci-fi and fantasy. So,
Okay.
so don't feel like you're missing out, because I feel like there's going to be more opportunities in the future.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we got to try and definitely like bring kind of the community together and like, you know, introduce more of like, you know, I just feel like it's a very solitary kind of thing. You're, you know, talking head, you're just kind of sitting there talking to a camera, but like we all like the same stuff. We're all inspired by the same stuff. So I would love to, I don't know how we can do it, but I'd love to try and figure out some type of like fantasy science fiction, maybe like writers retreat or like an event or like networking type thing, you know, where we bring a lot of like up and coming writers and stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, I will say an opportunity for something like that will arise around Worldcon next year. I think it's in Anaheim.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So,
Perfect. Yeah.
So I am intending on going to that. So
Sweet.
I think I think that around then might be a good opportunity. I do want to. I have like floated the idea to a few authors in the New York City, like tri-state area, to do like, you know, like a group signing at a local bookstore in the city. And I'm willing to extend that invite to whoever would be available. So of course, again, I'm like, that's, I mean, it's not behind the scenes now, but I'll as soon as I have more information for that, I'll fire it over to you. And if, you know, it's something that you can maybe swing, then then
for sure,
you know, you can consider it. But yeah, I'm always down to. I like the West Coast. I don't go out there enough, but I think Anaheim will be a time that I am definitely going to be out there on the West Coast. So yeah, I'd be game.
Yeah, I hope I can make it out to New York. That would be sick. I actually have a book signing next week, but it's like a smaller one in Utah. Cool. It's like where I went to school and everything. So yeah, sweet. I'd be happy to do any book signings, you know, anywhere. That'd be a blast. And I'll let you know of opportunities over here. But one last question. So obviously, since you're such a massive fan of Malazan, would you, I mean, I know Gardens of the Moon is a very like, you know, kind of jarring type, you know, introduction and all that kind of stuff. Do you have potentially a book that you'd recommend for me or anyone watching that you would maybe say is a good precursor to kind of dip your toes in, get you prepared for it? Do you think there's anything kind of pivotal that you should read before? Like, I mean, you know, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but what's your take on that?
That's tough.
Or just dive right in. You know,
well, I actually do think that Tad Williams equipped me, like just like with patience, you know, to like go into it. I also think Joe Abercrombie, funny enough, I think there's some there. I know that it's like it's almost I want to say polar opposite, but because his writing, his prose is vastly different from Tad Williams, but almost equally beautiful, simply just because of Tad Williams' style. That just comes down to preference, I think. So I think both of those authors, if you have a few of their books or maybe one or two of their books in your pocket, you can kind of go into Gardens of the Moon with a little bit more confidence. Like, okay, like you're following the words on the page, and like that's really all that matters. Is if you're just like, you know, where you are in a scene, relatively speaking, you can like put the pieces together scene by scene. Okay, well, this character has just pulled out a chair. These two people are smashing tankers together. I'm in a tavern, right? Like something simple like that. And sometimes he'll blatantly tell you you're in a tavern. But the best example I can give you is like, maybe he doesn't tell you that you're in a tavern, but you know these two characters are drinking beer. You know, like, okay, like you can sort of like put that together. The biggest thing with Malazan, I think, is just like you gotta just let yourself have the experience. Like it's and people bounce off of that. People bounce off Sun Eater. People bounce off like all my favorite stories. And people bounce off Mercy. You know, like it happens that way. I think if you're gonna go into Gardens of the Moon, there's some epic stuff that happens. There are some really cool characters and really cool things in the first book that you can sort of latch onto. The second book feels a lot more pieced together. And the characters, if they feel a little bit, you're in a completely different place, which can be jarring because the expectation is that there is I think one perspective that you follow from the first book, but for the most part, everything else is new. But you just kind of, you don't know what's going on, but you know that it has so much impact to the greater world that, yeah, I think just jumping right in sometimes is good too. But But if you're talking like writing, Tad Williams and I think Joe Abercrombie both there's a benefit to having read some of them before going into Guardians of the Moon for me.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'm reading The Devils right now. I was kind of like in a bit of a reading slump, I guess, after finishing my book. It was kind of one of those things where I was reading my own work so many times that I kind of burnt myself out from the act of it. I was like, I want to watch movies, I want to play games. Like, I don't want to read. I tried The Old Man and the Sea, and it's good. Probably like halfway done. It's kind of a short story, but like, it just wasn't really speaking to me. And then I'm hoping that The Devils pulls me out. So far, like 2 chapters in, I'm loving it. First, like Joe Abercrombie that I kind of plan on like fully diving into and finishing. And because I bounced off The Blade itself, even though I know it's a fantastic novel, I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to get back in the whole First Law trilogy, all that. But I think The Devils is going to be like that like boost I need to like love reading again, write do reviews and stuff. And then I guess after that, I'll go to A Song of Ice and Fire. And then probably go to First Law after that. So I kind of see the inspiration and then see like the, what comes next and all the inspirations and all that. So man. Well, I'll keep you posted on everything. Let me know if you ever get around to A Wizard of Earthsea or The Name of the Wind eventually. That'll be sick.
It will happen. It's a matter of when,
Same with Malazan back there. I got them sitting there. I literally pretty much every book you mentioned, I at least have the first book in the series, if not all of them. So I need to get through them. Keep reading all that. Yeah. So yeah, man. Well, this has been a ton of fun. Happy to have you on.
Yeah,
of course. Let's try and do this again sometime. Maybe we can do like a joint book review or something, or like a specific, like I've read a book and then eventually you read it or whatever, and we're able to just like have a discussion about a specific book. I think that would be sick, and I think the viewers would like that. Or like even author showcases where we just dive into like specific authors. Just lots of cool options that we could mess
that works
around
for
with.
me.
Yeah, it'll be super sick, man. I look forward to continuing growing the BookTube community and keep up the great work. One last shout out, Mercy, Tears of the Fallen, Chance Dillon. Everyone give this a read. This guy knows what he's talking about. And as you could tell from the video, you read a lot of great work, man. So I have no doubt that your book is a mirror of all the great things you've read. So can't wait to get into it myself. Of course.
Grateful.
All right, brother. Well, take care. Great talking to you, and catch you next time.
All right, dude. I'll see you.